PC, you ready? Let's go! Let's go, let's go! Let me hear you hold your horn! Let's go! Are you ready?
Being a fan of a professional sports team is more than a game. It's a way of life.
Everybody's here.
In the shadows of the city that never sleeps, lives a fan base that is unlike any other on the planet. It's a green and white sea of humanity. It's unwavering. And it is loud.
It's like a family reunion.
They are the heartbeat of a team that spans generations.
The Jet fan base is rock solid.
I love you, Jets fans.
Jets on three. 1, 2, 3. Yes! Whoa!
And they bleed green.
You live it, you breathe it, and most importantly, you love it.
They are the Diehards. The Diehards is presented by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy.
Morning. Good. How you doing?
All right.
First of all, it's pure heaven. Getting up at the hotel where I'm staying, and then going having breakfast, and then usually I have somebody, we come over, or I take an Uber, depending what's happening, come over to camp, watch practice. I was introduced to the Jets when I was 13 years old. I was always a tomboy growing up. I never played with dolls or anything. I was playing all kinds of sports, but football was not really a big sport then. So my father and my uncle became the team doctors for the New York Jets. They were the Titans then, who then became the Jets in 1963. And it really changed my entire life and future and became so much of my identity.
In 1960, the Jets were born. It was an upstart franchise looking to pave its way and earn its place. It's a fitting story for one of the team's biggest fans. Connie Carberg fell in love with the team from the beginning.
It was the AFL-NFL war back then that a lot of this generation coming up doesn't really remember. But the Giants and the NFL looked down their noses at us because we were the American Football League and we were kind of like second-class citizens. So as time went on, though, we started, winning, and so as all of a sudden we're beating the Oakland Raiders at Shea Stadium, probably in the AFC Championship game, and then going down to the Super Bowl was unbelievable as a high school senior. And all of a sudden, just everybody was talking Jets.
You haven't even put on a Jet uniform yet. You already feel a little bit of pressure?
Well, pressure just makes you go all the more. I kind of like pressure a little bit.
Mr. Werblin, you're the man that's given all this money. We don't know the exact figures, but...
you're not going to know it.
Prove the Beauty Mist can make any legs look like $1 million.
Now, I don't wear pantyhose, but a Beauty Mist can make my legs look good. Imagine what they'll do for yours.
Charisma is the word. Joe is unbelievable. I just got to meet him back in those days. Remember, you don't have camera phones and all that stuff. So to have a little picture taken with him when he first got drafted in 1965 and he came to the Jets. But right away, as soon as you met him, there was that just total charisma, as well as the quickest release you ever saw in football. His setup, getting back, and coming in with the knees, but also being the first big bonus guy, which Sonny Werblin did as the owner, he became as big as the Beatles.
honor to open today's welcoming ceremonies for our conquering team. It is a privilege, on behalf of the greatest city in the world, to pay tribute to the greatest football team in the world, the New York Jets.
Oh my goodness! Yeah. Super Bowl III. Big Jeff Richardson. Here he is.
How you doing?
I'm doing just great.
I saw you walking the door. I said, whoa, he doesn't stop, huh?
I didn't know you were going to be. It's so good to see you. Oh, that's so wonderful. And that's my son there, Chris.
Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Big Jeff. Look, right there's our boys. Yep. Our defensive line. This is probably the hardest part from the time that I was young till now, because I can try to watch objectively like I do when I watch other teams. I don't get really emotionally involved. But once you get to know a player, you meet them, or you've been at the schools, that type of thing, or at the draft, and even here, certain players just win over your heart. And that I've always been a person that's not just on measurables, not just on height, weight, and speed, but their love of the game, their heart, their enthusiasm, the kind of person that they seem to be. I always thought the interview was super important, as well as playing ability. I mean, you cannot be always great and be a great player, but I still do think it corresponds. And then I find myself, I have soft spots, and then I got to be careful, because I do. I rule with my heart at times, and when certain players get cut, I'll cry.
Ahead of one of the team's most anticipated seasons, training camp always feels like home. But Connie is no ordinary fan. As the first female scout in the history of the NFL, she's one of the game's pioneers.
Yeah, I didn't know what I wanted to major in. They said you have to pick a major, so I just picked home ec, dietetics, nutrition. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. But I had a book, You Win With People by Woody Hayes, and I was president of my sorority, ZTA, at Ohio State. And I just went over one day after and waited for the team to come out of the union where they would eat. When Coach Hayes came out, I had him sign the book, and I talked to him all about my football love and growing up with football, my passion, how I was learning it and all that type of thing. And, as I said, back in those days, there were very few women that were either even caring about games, or that you could talk to about games. Now it's a whole different world. And I said, he said, there's not a lot of things for women right now, which there wasn't. I mean, even Phyllis George was about the only person with the pregame in the NFL. He said, but what I want you to do is to come to practices. I want you to, whether it's open or closed, you're welcome. And talk to the scouts, talk to the players, learn the game. You never know in life where it's leading you. So I did that, and I'm so glad that I listened to him. After my dad retired from the Jets in 1989, they came down and we would watch the Jet games. Then after they passed, then, as said, things keep changing. Then it was my husband and myself and my son, and if my stepdaughter was visiting from Connecticut, she'd be watching with us, watching the game. Now, my son is married with 2 kids, but our special time right now is for him to come over on Sunday, because with little ones running around and I like to really concentrate, he and I have that special time to just really focus in. We come over, watch the game, and he keeps me from going crazy to some degree. He really keeps me more calm than I would be if he wasn't there. So that's mostly what I do during the games. My father had a 50th birthday party, and I kind of table hop and love to talk to people, and we had friends and family there, but we also had some Jets. Coach Charlie Winter, who was Weeb Eubank's son-in-law, was the head coach. So I sat down and started talking to him, and he goes, you know what? He said, we're building a brand new complex at Hofstra University where the Jets were practicing, but we don't have anybody there yet to work. He said, would you consider, he said, with your passion and your attitude and your love of the game, would you consider working? So I said, oh, yeah. So I went. I was the only girl in the whole building at that time, and most people didn't have secretaries for them. So it was so exciting, because I was a receptionist and a scouting secretary at the same time. In 1975, they had the draft, and it was 17 rounds. And my boss, Mike Hollaback, who was a genius, if you look at the 76 and 77 drafts, they were unbelievable. He and Al Ward, who was the general manager, we were all in the room, and he said, there were 70 rounds, I got to the last round, he said, okay, Kyle, you're gonna make the last pick. So I'm still to this day the only female to ever actually make a pick. I chose Mike Bartosik, a tight end wide receiver from the Ohio State University. And they started talking, and they said, we want you to do some scouting. So I said, okay. I said, fine, I'd love to. So I had, as I said, been holding my own mock draft since I was 16, when Ron Yary came out, when Ted Hendricks came out, and all these different players. But we didn't have all the information, as I said, that we had now. You had one game on a week and stuff. So that's how it began. And they sent me to Ohio State. They sent me down up to Boston College. They sent me down to the Orange Bowl, a bunch of schools, and started writing reports. Also doing film. It was reel to reel back then, and so I would do film work. It was a joy. I loved every minute of it.
After getting her foot in the door, Carberg made a lasting impact, helping to discover one of the biggest game changers in the history of the franchise.
1979, the Jets were coaching the Senior Bowl. Walt Michaels was the head coach, and Mike Stensrud got hurt from Iowa State, and they needed a replacement. Most of the guys that we're pretty sure we were going to draft in the first round, like Fred Smirlis and stuff like that, were already at the Senior Bowl. So the guys that I was trying to find information on were like rounds 4 to 7, because now we had gone to, 12 rounds instead of 17. So I started looking up as much as you could. Now, remember, you don't have all the stuff that you could look up now. So whatever tape you could find, any reports, anybody you could talk to on the phone and get on the phone and ask them questions. So I did that, narrowed it down to about 5 guys. They were very similar. There was one guy that was a lot faster, but he was from a small school. So I said, well, how am I going to decide? Because they're very close, and they're saying, we want you to figure this out. I called each player. Most of the players were fine on the phone. They said, okay, I'll play. When's the Senior Bowl? I think I'm in shape. I'm ready. I don't mind filling in, blah, blah, blah. One player said, get me on the next plane. I'm ready to play football. It's all I want to join life. I love this. I'm ready right now. I'm in shape. And I'm a person who likes passion, a person who loves enthusiasm. And I said, this is the guy, wow. So I looked back, and it was Mark Gastineau, who ran a 4.55 at 270 pounds, 6'5", but he was from East Central Oklahoma, from a little tiny school, and we didn't have a lot of tape on that. He ended up getting the defensive player of the game for the North squad. Marty Lyons got defensive player for the South squad. And draft time comes around, and first round pick, we get Marty Lyons. Second round pick, we get Mark. And so that was half of the sack exchange. And I have and then with the new old logo, as we said. Okay, let me see, am I doing it backwards or forward?
Backwards.
Okay, you gotta tell me. Is that right?
Yep.
And with all the autographs, this is about when I would come up to Jet Camp in the 80s with my son when he was real little.
Can you give me a few words you think describe the Jets fan base?
Few words: loyal, loud, just fun, blue collar, tough. Wow. A diehard fan means no matter what happens, you support them, you love them. You can criticize or you can hurt. To me, that's when you're a diehard, but you're with them all the way. It is a total passion and a love that is so deep. I'm Connie Carberg. I'm the first female scout in the NFL, and I'm a die-hard Jet fan.
In sports, it's impossible to draw up the perfect fan. Being a diehard comes in many different forms. And for some, it's much more than black and white.
So these are some drawings my mother saved that I made as a really young kid that date back to 2003, 2004, like September 2003. Looks like I was drawing Vinny Testaverde, the Jets quarterback. Have some Chad Penningtons in there. So as long as I could remember, that's kind of all I was doing, was drawing Jets players and Joe Namath. So yeah, 2003, so I was 6 years old here. And it really goes to show that I've really been doing one thing my whole life, which is kind of drawing Jets players.
For Matt Giannessis, passion for the Jets lies in the details.
So this is my favorite or second favorite drawing I've done so far. The reason being is it was so detailed. So you see different like sweat that he had on his head during the game. I really kind of tried to capture everything that I saw in the reference photo. And this is the drawing I got to actually give to Garrett Wilson, which was such a cool experience. And then you have a photo of me giving it to him here. So this one, I'll always remember. So growing up, that was my talent that I had, was drawing. It kind of always was. So I was always sketching. I was always drawing different things. And then I got to high school and I kind of took a break from it. No reason why, just kind of stopped. And as I got older, I kind of just was like, man, I miss doing that. That's what I loved doing as a kid, and I really got back into it. So I tried different things. I tried drawing with typical pencils like I used to, and then I started trying out charcoal, and that's kind of what I'm really into right now. So using charcoal, not just pencils, but also different brushes to make drawings fade better or look a little bit better. It's kind of what I'm using now. So funny thing is that's kind of always what I've done. So as a little kid, if my parents found me drawing, I was drawing Jets players. Just kind of always what it was, because that's kind of my favorite thing to do in my spare time, is follow the team. So I always found myself sketching the Jets quarterbacks, different Jets players. And then when I got back into art as an adult, I'm like, I'm gonna do the same thing. That's what I like doing, so that's what I'm gonna draw. This is the second one I've done of Rodgers, which personally I like a little bit more because he was on the team at the time, so I didn't have that worry in the back of my head that I was doing this all for nothing. I did put a lot of detail and time into this one as well, so this one is one of my favorite I've done so far. Drawing players with a helmet on versus not, I feel like is a totally different thing, because the texture of the helmet is so different than the texture of skin or hair. Capturing the shininess is something that took me a while to try to understand and get. So once I finish a drawing with a helmet and I think it looks good, that's a rewarding feeling, because getting that shiny texture is not something that I find easy. So this is the most recent drawing I've done. It's of Breece Hall, and I think the reason why it was so popular on social media and why I love doing it is I put so much detail into the visor and the shine on the helmet. So if you were to look closely at it, I put different scratches as if he was like attacked by, like he went to war or something. I don't even know what I was going for, but I feel like the scratches give it a cool vibe, as well as broken pieces of the face mask. And the reflection came out exactly as I wanted it to, so I was so happy with how this one came out. My game day routine is I wake up, get my mind off the game a little bit, because that's all I've been thinking about. Maybe go to the gym, go food shopping, whatever. Come home, put on pregame football, watch it, and make sure nobody's near me. I gotta be by myself, and then I lock in. Games at the stadium, I gotta wake up early. It's a long drive. It's a great drive. Listen to a Jets podcast or New York Sports Talk Radio. Get to the stadium, tailgating's the best thing in the world. I love tailgating. I feel like Jets fans are better than anybody at it. The place is so crowded, it's such a good environment, and go inside the stadium and enjoy the game. I typically find a cool image that I think would look cool as a drawing, and then I spend a while doing a rough sketch of it, so that I use a typical lead pencil, just sketch it out, like not too much detail or anything like that. So everything on this table right now is basically the utensils I'll use to draw. By the time that the drawing's over, you won't see any like remnants of this pencil. So that's why I typically use graphite in the beginning. When I get the charcoal, I use different ones just for the varying darkness of the charcoal. So this one's very light, it's a 2B, whereas this one's a 4B, a little bit darker. And then the 6B is the darkest ones that I use. And when you see a black background in one of my drawings, it's because I used a 6B. So that's this one. It looks pretty beat up because I'm just coloring in the background with it pretty hard. And then once I think that I have like the right sketch, the proportions are correct and everything, that's when I take out the charcoal pencils. They're darker, they're harder to erase, so I kind of like doing the sketches in lead. And then that's when I start using different brushes to have different proportions, different fades. And typically each drawing has like 3 or 4 layers. So I'll draw it once, I don't like the layer, I'll put more shading on top of it and more again and again. So it takes a long time to do, obviously, but it's what I like to do. When I start drawing a face, I start with the nose because I work my way out, meaning the nose is the center of the face, so if I could get the nose done, the rest of the proportions kind of fall in line. When it comes to the visor, like I did like in the Brees Hall's visor, this is an acrylic paint pen, so this is like the really bright white that I could get. I'll use this. And it draws like a pen would draw, so it's pretty helpful to use. I don't sit down and draw these in one day at all. Maybe it'll be like one day I'll spend 2 hours on it, I'll take a day off, the next day I'll spend 3 hours on it, and take 2 days off and continue to work on it. So I have these like running projects, and I'd say anywhere from like 5 hours to like sometimes like 20 hours over the course of multiple days. So it depends on the drawing, but it's a lot of time I put into it, and it's not always easiest to find the time, but it's a lot of time put into it.
For any fan, representing the green and white is a lifetime commitment.
Being a diehard fan to me means you're never going to waver from the team, you're going to support them through the good and the bad.
The lines on each face tell a story of where you've been, what you've seen, and what it means to you. It's passion, resiliency, perfection. The Diehards.
I'm Matt Giannessis, and I'm a diehard Jets fan.